Welcome to Norwegian Modeling Bench. This is Kenneth, and now it is time to get started on a new build. So I am going to start on the LHD-2 USS Essex, so a WASP class amphibious assault ship, and I'm using the Pontos kit for this one, as I have given a review on before. So the game plan for this build is to first start working on the internal structures. So you have deck, you have hangar decks, and you have all of these internal base, replenishment port, and so on. So we'll make all of the internals. Also, I will be working on vehicles, planes, helicopters, and so on that go inside the hangar deck. And then I will be starting work on the hull. There are quite a few details that will be added to the hull, but I think I will start out filling, removing parts, adding kit parts, then doing priming, painting. Also, I want to have the panel lines visible, so doing some kind of pre-shading on that before moving ahead, installing the internals. Then the flight deck, at least the plastic flight deck, so I can start working on the catwalks that go beneath the deck. So they will be pre-painted as well before installing them, so you get a good fit towards the flight deck, and also that I'm able to paint the catwalks in a correct color. Then after that, it will be then adding the steel flight deck and working on the island, and also, of course, adding the planes and so on. And I want to place this in a sea base. So something like this picture shows here, where you can see also the LCAC coming in, the deck door bay open, so you can see inside. I also want to add some lights inside, so you can see inside both the well deck and the hangar deck. And then, of course, since it is in a sea base, I also want to add crew. So it looks like there's something going on, at least. So that is my game plan for this build. I hope that it will be interesting to look at all the build installments. So please give me feedback, click the like button, and of course, if you don't subscribe to the channel, please do. So I'm starting out with the hull itself. There are quite a few of these notches that you need to fill, and there is quite a good guide in the Pontos instructions. And of course, these are used for the kit catwalks and so on. Those are going to be replaced with Pontos photo etch instead. So you need also to install the bulb, of course. That might be be visible, even though I'm placing this in a sea base. But the other parts on the other side of the hull, I'm not going to install. So like the rudder and propellers and so on, I'm leaving that out. Those won't be visible when it's in the sea base anyway. And those are usually prime candidates for being knocked off. You also have a lot of other parts, and this is where you need to check the instructions from Trumpeter. So this is a combination of Trumpeter and Pontos in one kit, and the elevators that I might need to do a kind of a trick there later on. Per instructions, you are supposed to add the elevators before the flight deck, and I'm not going to do that. Then the elevators will be well, knocked off and in the way for the work that needs to be done on the catwalks and so on. So I'm going to leave that out for later, and I figure out how to do it. I have a game plan. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but still. So you can see all of these extra parts that are going around the ship. So I'm installing it at this stage. So I have them painted up, and they're also kind of a guide to where to place the catwalks and so on. So then I'm adding this pre-shading of the panel lines. So not a biggie. Don't need to be very precise when doing it. There will only be visible like some shading beneath the haze gray color. So getting the correct amount, one layer at a time, to see that you're not covering the panel lines. Of course, you can see them fairly well in these pictures, but it's not that visible at all. Maybe a bit too invisible, but it should only be really visible when you go close. So then I'm adding the boot stripe. That's just flat black, and then the hull red. As you see, I'm not going to paint the underside since it's in sea base. Probably I didn't have to add the hull red at all, but okay. Then I'm adding the decals for the ship. Of course, I've given the entire hull a coat of gloss varnish, also to protect the paint. And I'm using the VMS decals, soft and set to do this. Also using a bit of water to neutralize the chemicals. Then I'm starting out on the well deck and the hangar deck, and of course this takes a lot of time. There are quite a few parts that need to be put together, painted, and so on. So for me, this is kind of a middle stage. I like to work on the outside of the ship, but at the same time, it is very nice when you can see inside. And as I said, I'm going to add some lights, LED lights, and so on, so you can see at least inside the well deck and inside the hangar. Of course, when painting this, I've tried to look at a number of reference pictures, especially for the well deck, and there are quite a few variations. Some showing what should we call it? The back part of it white, and the forward part in gray, and some gray and white. So I elected to go with gray on the back side where the well deck is, and then white for the hangar and so on. Not white, but off-white really. And here we also have some nice railings from the Pontos photo etch. I'm not sure if that actually is in the regular set, but these at least gives a very nice detail of how of inside the well deck. So if you're going to have it open, I would definitely add those. I've also seen that some of these bollards, or what they're called, actually might be painted in different colors as well. I haven't done so, but that might be a good addition as well. And then I'm working on the replenishment port. You also have some photo etch replacements that you can add to this one, which actually is a huge improvement in terms of what you get in the plastic kit. So some nice work with photo etch there. And also for the port where you have the tender, you also have a crane that you can build up in photo etch, which is really nicely detailed, I would say. And I love those that photo etch work. I think it gives me kind of a pleasure and building up things like this. So this is the crane itself before it's painted, and you can see it's quite nice detail wise. And then, of course, now I'm just thinking of this 3D print versus photo etch and so on. Well, using photo etch, that at least gives you the possibility for some craftsmanship, and well, you know that you have actually built the crane and not just glued a 3D printed part in place. So now I'm starting to paint up the well deck. So I'm just using a dark gray color for the deck itself. Of course, as I said, I'm using gray, the haze gray, modern haze gray, for the well deck bulkheads, and then off-white for the bulkheads inside, and the storage, or the kind of the hangar deck for the vehicles. I'm not going to add a lot of vehicles inside. And then I'm brush painting some rubber black to these I'm not sure what you would call it, but kind of a bumpers that when the LCACs and LCUs and so on are going inside, that they're not being scraped up or damaged in any way. So just giving them a brush painting also gives you the possibility to give it a bit of variation, so not everything is pristine. Of course, I want this to be worn, and if you look at pictures from the different LHDs, you will see that they're quite weared down. They're heavily used. So getting the weathering on this perfectly, that's a challenge in itself. Not exaggerating, but at the same time that it will look realistic, and that is difficult to get correct. So you can see I'm installing, dry fitting the well deck in the hull before starting work on the hangar deck, or putting the parts together. And as you can see, I've painted up all the different parts. Of course, everything you see in this video is not necessarily done in sequence. I worked with the different parts in parallel, because you have drying time, and also just get some variation in the work is very nice. And of course, I've done a lot of work on the vehicles and some of the helicopters, and you might have also seen the video I made of the F-35s. So in parallel, I'm working on these different vehicles and aircrafts that are going on the ship later on, and also, of course, inside this hangar deck. I've also started working on painting up a lot of the crew members, and you will see them a bit later on. So now I'm weathering up the hangar deck, just using some panel line. So I used a dark gray and on the white areas, and then this black panel line on gray areas. So if you're using black on white, then it might be too exaggerated and look too it won't look that good. And then I'm just using a brush that is moistened in some white spirit or mineral spirit before starting to weather up the bulkheads inside the well deck, because that will be a very hard area to reach afterwards. And then I'm starting work on the LCAC, and these are of course also a combination of the kit parts in plastic and photo etch, and there's quite a lot of work that you can do. Of course, you want these to look good. The downside, well, that will be that at least one of these for my build I'm going to place inside the well deck, so it looks like it has just come in the well deck door, and of course all of the work that you have done will not necessarily be visible, but you know it's there, you know it's good, and that is, for me at least, the most important part. it's like my daughter says, why are you using so much time on things that nobody can see afterwards? And it's exactly that. You know that you have done that work and that it looks good. So it's kind of a comfort of mind. And I know this applies to people building aircrafts and so on as well, at least when you're working on the cockpit and all of those details that will be not visible at all or hardly visible. And to get these parts to fit together is quite a lot of work to smoothen out some of these lines, that mold lines and so on that you will get when gluing the parts together. So spending a bit of time to get that is probably wise. This is the rubber, I don't know what it's called. It's like a skirt. Yeah, that was probably the correct word. The rubber skirt beneath the craft, because it's air inside and that lifts up the vessel itself, and it floats on an air cushion, you can say. And then there are some photo etch that are going to replace some of these details that you have on these side structures on the LCAC. You're also going to replace the pilot house with photo etch, so you need to cut off the plastic pilot house, and that definitely requires some attention, so you don't cut too much and get it leveled out, sanding and well, just use some patience to get that, or otherwise the photo etch will not adhere well to the plastic itself. So you could say it's quite fiddly, and like these vents, I'm not sure if it's vents, but they also push out air, so you can direct the craft, and you need to do a bit of surgery to get them hollow at least. Otherwise it will just look like a blank or locked up. No, well, event that wouldn't work anyway. Sorry for that one. So I'm installing all of these parts, both the photo etch parts and the plastic parts, in one go. I'm not pre-painting anything here. I'm doing the painting with an airbrush, of course, later on when everything is installed. And these photo etch parts from Pontos, they look good, but they don't necessarily fit very well. At least the part that I'm working on here, it's not of the correct size. It's not very visible afterwards, but it doesn't really match with the width of the structure itself. So pay some attention there if you're going to work on this. And also the surface area where you're going to glue, that's not necessarily very large, so you need to use some patience there. And also I'm using, as I've said before, a combination of both this thin CA glue, which it seeps into crevices and gives you a good bond, where it would be hard to reach in with regular CA glue, and you would probably get some glue blobs and so on, which definitely does not look good when it's painted up. That's I think the main thing when I see builds and where people have these glue blobs that has been painted up, and it doesn't really look good. So use the correct amount of glue, and I use a lot of thin CA glue because that gives you the least amount of these blobs. And also I could recommend the VMS Flexi CA glue. When that dries, it usually do not dry into big blobs, which I've seen with a lot of other CA glues that I've tried before. So VMS, no doubt the best CA glue on the market, I would say. And as you can see, I'm also using a visor when I'm working with these tiny photo etch parts. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to see what I'm working on. So that is definitely a good investment. I have several different types. Some are like with this wristband, and some are looking like just regular glosses. So depending on where you get like the pressure from the glosses themselves, that you could be looking at different options there. And on this one, as you can see, there are quite a few tiny photo etch parts. I'm dry fitting the structure in this just to get the placement correct. So it's definitely not glued together yet, since I'm going to paint up the deck on the LCAC separately from the structures, so you get those crisp lines between the structure itself and the deck. And then you have a couple of decals that are going on. They're both decals from Pontos and from Trumpeter on this one. And as you can see, this one kind of failed as well, the quality of the decals from Trumpeter is not the best. The ones that are made by Pontos is actually quite good and easy to work with. So now I'm assembling the different parts of the LCAC together and gluing them in place, and now you can see a bit of sheen. That's because of the gloss varnish that I've added before adding the decals. That of course will be, I'm adding a new layer of varnish afterwards. I've actually added a satin varnish because I wanted a bit of sheen. These are metal surfaces and are not necessarily entirely flat. So I also did that. So the sheen is gone when this is finished. And then I'm preparing the flight deck. There are quite a few protruding parts that needs to be removed, and those are going to be replaced. You're going to add a steel flight deck, and also you have some nice 3D printed resin parts. Also adding lights. I'm not going to show you everything here. These are just micro LEDs also going inside the well deck. So now have all the different parts ready. So I'm installing the entire, all the different parts together. First the well deck itself, and here you can see my nice electronics work. Doesn't really look good. I wouldn't present it to anyone saying I'm really good at this, but it works, so why not? And these tiny LEDs, I don't know if you have worked with them, quite difficult to get soldered those wires together. So a bit of, or quite a lot of flux and so on is needed. And as you can see, I've also used a fixer, wet fixer on the back side of the well deck, so it looks wet a bit inside. Of course, it wouldn't be dry when the LCAC has been entering and so on. And then the hangar deck goes inside. And as you can saw, the lighting for the hangar deck is beneath the flight deck, so all of those wires are not visible here. And I did that also because then the lights won't be that visible. And then I'm working on the aft part. You have some structures there that are both plastic parts and photo etch parts. So I've all painted them all up, and as you can see, I've also added the decals for those decks before installing them. Trying to add it afterwards would just be a nightmare. And also these girders beneath the backside that I installed after actually adding this to the hull. The instructions say that you should add it before, but I can't see how that would easily be done without knocking off the parts when installing them. So I did it afterwards, at least, so pre-painting the parts and then adding those girder structures. So all of this then is one unit that can easily, in quotes, be installed afterwards. You also, I'm not showing it, but you should also check the fit towards the flight deck, so that this backside wall is going to be flush with the flight deck as well. And then of course we need some details inside the hangar deck. So I'm adding a F-35, a Stallion, some Apaches, some vehicles, and also some crew members. Well, the crew members are in different with the different color codes that you can see on aircrafts. They might not be in the correct place in terms of what they are going to do, but okay, this is what it is. And then the final step for this part is then installing the flight deck. This pops quite well in, at least in my case. I've done some dry fitting before, and then I'm kind of spot welding that deck in place before this part is finished. So this is how the end result looks. You can see inside the well deck and the hangar. You can see the lights. So I think I've gotten a good start, at least for this part. It has been a fairly long build. It's taken a couple of months to get to this stage. And of course, working on all of these vehicles and so on has taken a lot of time. And also had a bit of a break building the Ford model that you can see on my channel as well. So I hope that you liked this part. The next part will be later on. So please comment if you like. Click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want. So until next time, stay safe.